Hi, I'm making a tutorial for my cousin, but you're more than welcome to follow along. I'm going to make a cappuccino, and I'm going to use a six cup espresso pot and a two quart saucepan to get started. Process takes about 25 minutes. I use a cast iron skillet for the espresso pot. I'm not sure if you need to or not, but that's what I do. And the tools I'm going to use are going to be my espresso pot, 2-quart pan, my cast iron skillet, it's like a little 2-egg skillet, a whisk, and a tablespoon. And I have 2 different forms of tablespoons. I like the Chinese spoons. But I also have a ladle because my 2-quart saucepan does not have a rim, and it makes it hard to pour, so it winds up being all over the place. I'm not a professional. I do know how to make my cappuccinos, and I'm going to show you how to make them. Actually, my cousin already knows how to make it, but it's just kind of a follow-up so she can keep track of it. So I'm going to fill my water up to this little, I don't know, pressure releaser, steam releaser. I'm going to fill it right up underneath there. My coffee. Kind of fill that up all the way. And again, this is a six espresso cups. You can make up to 3 cappuccinos. But we're only going to make 2 for this. If you want later on, you could make more. I set the timer for 10 minutes. It's about a 20-minute process, but it's just kind of how the way I do things. I let it count down for 2 minutes before I start the flame on the milk. And I usually do about 1.5 cups, maybe 2 cups of milk. I usually eyeball it, but for the tutorial I'm going to go ahead and use my measuring cup. I have about 1.5 cups in there. Sometimes at the end of the process I have to put a little bit more if it's not the right amount. While that's going, I add whatever type of sugar I'm going to add. I always use honey, so that's what I'm using. I always put it in first, and then I put the espresso in, and once the espresso's in, I mix it around before I add the milk to it. And I usually fill the cup up. I should have done that before I put honey on here. But I usually fill the espresso up to right about here. Be right about there. That's usually about 2 shots of espresso, maybe a little more. But I'm thinking it's about 2 shots last time I checked. Let's see. The reason I'm going to heat up this milk is, of course, it needs to be heated, but it gives it the froth. So a lot of the time I'll be mixing and that's about it. You're going to watch me do a lot of nothing for a while. So any questions?
No.
I asked the camera guy.
Hey, how you ask me?
Okay, so what I'm going to be making here is 2 cups. My timer's gone down to 8 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and light this. I set the milk on the medium setting, and I set the cappuccino on high. I use a cast iron skillet with it. Whenever I learned to make espresso, I was in Italy. And they had an electric stove, and they put it on the smallest burner, and they never used that. But I I do it just to be on the safe side. I'm not sure if the heat would melt the plastic, and I don't really want to take that chance. Now on this froth, whenever I go to mix it, you can leave it set for a little bit. You can leave it set for 2-3 minutes. But if you leave it setting for too long, you will have like a milk curd. So I always tried to mix it. And whenever I do mix it, I always whisk it back and forth, and that brings the air in. If I'm getting too much air in, I will turn the whisk circular to try to bring the air, or try to bring some of the air out of it, because the bubbles will get really big and it'll rise up. Also with this, if you leave it cooking at a lower temperature, you will get, it'll take a little longer to cook, but it makes the froth bubbles really dense, and that's what you want. You want dense bubbles. You don't want big bubbles full of air. So that's why I do that. And let's see what else my notes are. That was about it. So we're at 7 minutes till till the cappuccino gets done, and we're just gonna turn it off now and then turn it back on.
Okay.
Okay, I'm at 6 minutes, or 5 minutes counting down now, and every so often, maybe more frequent than not, I whisk back and forth on my 2-quart pot, sauce pot, to get the bubbles going and incorporate them. And sometimes they will rise up. Sometimes it'll completely rise up before my cappuccino is done, and I'll turn the flame all the way down. But if it's still rising after that, I will actually just remove it from the flame for a couple minutes, just to give myself a chance to pour out the espresso, and then I get back to the milk, because I could always rework the milk. But if I let the heat get to it too fast, then it ruins it. It turns it into like, it just is bad. It makes it have a lot of curds in there, and then you wind up drinking your coffee and you have a bunch of white crusties coming out. So I always, really the thing I always tend to the most and always watch is the milk. That's really the big process. The heat and whisking it whips that air into the milk, which saves me the process of having to use the machine, but it still is work. The longer you work on this, the more you comprehend, the more you learn your way around, heating up the milk and cooking it. But basically, you want to have the heat and the air just introduced to it too slowly. You don't want to have the heat up too far, too fast, because in the end you do burn the milk. So you want to make sure it's just a continuous process all the way through. Okay, and I'll get back with you when it gets closer. Okay, right now I'm still working on the bubbles. The heat seems to be making them rise a little bit more faster than I want, so I'm going to turn the heat down. And I'm going to spin it circularly and try to get some of the heat bubbles out. But if it keeps rising, I will ultimately have to turn it off the heat. And that is okay, because you could always get back to the milk. But you kind of want to make sure that they follow the same process. Right now, the cappuccino is bubbling. Let's see where it's at. See? It's about done in its process, so we're going to go ahead and turn it off. And I fill it up. I'll show you how far I fill it up. And it's about 2 shots, maybe a little bit more. I'm sure it's not less, maybe a little more, but that's about, just to see if what I do. And if you see right here where I fill it up, that's about as high as it goes, is right there. And I go ahead and mix that in before I start with the milk. See, there's my 10 minutes. I add another 10 minutes to it. It takes about 20 to 25 minutes. But on this, the reason I'm using the ladle is I just flat don't have a rim, and it winds up pouring all over the place. It doesn't work like a regular saucepan because I don't have that rim or a spout for it to pour out of the sides. So I probably fill this up about 5/8 of the way. 5/8 of the way. And the cups, different cups are different sizes. So you'll want to get a different consistency and sometimes a different flavor. It's really all up to what you like. And that's totally up to you. This is how I make my cappuccino. And when I go to spoon it out, I love these spoons because they just pick up more. Whenever I go to spoon it out, I always have my spoon up and down. I have my saucepan out like this. But I have my spoon up and down because I'm just trying to skim out the froth. And if I do it that way, I'm going to get the liquid. So this is just the process of skimming out the froth. And for the most part, I try not to scrape the bottom, but by the time I come all the way up, it really doesn't matter. And this process takes another 10 to 15 minutes, and that is, I'm going to turn the heat back on to medium, and that is just going back and forth and scraping it, and then digging the bubbles out, or the froth out, little by little. I learned how to make espressos when I was in Italy, and then I learned how to make a really weird egg puff type cookie, and it dawned on me that if I could whip air into eggs, I could whip air into milk, and that's how I figured out how to do it. And the rest is just trial and error. Really, the way I got good at it was doing it. And the more I worked with the milk, the more experience I got, and the more I learned. You know, the more practice I got, the more experience I got, the better I understood what I was making, and it helped me out in the process as well. This is just kind of a long process. It's scooping out the froth and remaking some more. You have to excuse me, this is my first video I've ever made and really inexperienced on it. I'm used to relate with people on a one-on-one level. Again, back and forth is how I whip the air in circularly for it to come down. Again, a spoon up and down. And it's a long process. Sometimes I do it until I get it up to here. I may not do that for this video, and sometimes I wind up having to put more milk in. Sometimes it's too much milk. You always wind up with extra milk in there, no matter how you do it. You always wind up with a little extra milk. Up a little bit. I might go ahead and put just a little more in there. I started out with 1.5 cups for 2 cups. And I think we're going to just go ahead and turn the camera off and show you what the finished product looks like.
Go.
Alright, I think we're finishing up. I think this is going to be the last part of it. And we're going to enjoy our coffee, our cappuccino. Voila, finished product. And that's it.
That's it?
That's it. Practicing, and practice makes perfect. The espresso is pretty easy. The biggest issue is learning the milk, and those are the pointers I have. And I hope you make a great cup of cappuccino.
All right, man.